Let's welcome to our practice today. We'll look a little bit into how time flies and perhaps managing our times by raising a bit more awareness. I've placed a block near the mat, down to one. So if you have a block near you, it might come in quite handy, and we might even use it right at the beginning of the practice. I don't think anything else is required at this point. So I will make my way down onto a seated position, and I will use this block already. So I'm popping it underneath. Now I will leave a little bit of choice for you in case this way of sitting isn't yours. You might choose to extend your legs forward or sit in an easy pose. However, it might be nice to sit in Virajasana for today as well, if it is available. So generally we sit down towards the heels. I've chosen to sit on a block instead, so a little bit elevated, making it more comfortable. And as you all arrive in a seated position, placing your hands down, maybe closing your eyes, and just allowing yourself to arrive. To arrive with potential little movements going through your body, as you could wiggle a little bit over your sitting bones, perhaps moving your neck by turning the head, but being gentle and kind here. And also moving through your shoulders. And as you become comfortable in the position, we will bring our hands into a mudra of the Lord of Time. So we're pointing our middle fingers up, and I might come closer to the screen for that. The middle fingers are pointing up, the other fingers are folding in, and the thumbs are pointing together. So I will hold that upside down towards you. It's the middle fingertips pointing together and the thumbs. The other fingers are folded into the hand. So when you hold it like this, it looks a bit like a heart shape. And as you might have attempted this mudra, you could rest the tips of your thumbs against your sternum. If it feels all right for arms and shoulders, you might actually raise your elbows and create a bit of gentle pressure so the fingers are staying here in place. It feels a tad bit as if you're extending slightly into your rib cage. Please allow the shoulders to remain soft and feel free at any time to lower the elbows and become more comfortable if required. Eyes might be closed or your gazing point might be steady as you take this time now to just tune in with the hand position. How does it feel? Kalishara mudra, mudra of the Lord of Time. Whatever you are feeling right now, the gesture itself has the potential to install a calmer mind, gaining a bit of control over your thoughts and emotions. And it might help to direct the flow of energy or prana within the body. This mudra invites us to contemplate time, death, and more so the behaviors in our life. If we want to overcome any behaviors of ourselves and patterns that we don't like. We can use this mudra to bring awareness to those habits and perhaps from there creating change. These words might have triggered an intention for the practice for yourself. If it has, formulate it in your mind and perhaps repeat it 3 times to yourself. You might, after those repetitions, take a breath in and simply open your arms out wide, maybe lifting your heart space and your gaze. And as you breathe out, turning into a light twist just to one side. Hands can rest where they're comfortable. Let's open the front of the body again as you breathe in, stretch into your arms, open your fingers, and then an exhale to twist to the other side. Perhaps opening your arms one last time from here as you inhale, and then beginning to lean the body forward, your hands reaching forward. If you've chosen a different position to mine, you might swing your legs out to the side. Any of you using a support underneath might like to remove that and extending your arms forward into a child's pose. Please notice whether it feels better to have your knees closed or your knees out a little bit wider. Wiggle yourself into a comfortable child's pose. And if the head doesn't easily touch the ground, I suggest to use a block in front so the forehead can rest and the arms can extend loosely without jarring into the neck by allowing the head to wear the neck down. Find that length in your neck, the support, and think of surrendering into this inward focusing shape. If it feels right for you, your arms can stay extended, or you could touch the palms of the hands together and then drop that prayer position behind your head. Through that bend in your elbows, you might feel a little bit more extension through the shoulders, maybe your upper arms. Finding your breath as your point of focus and deepening your breathing so that you feel the lungs filling completely, yet without strain or stress, and then lengthening your out breath. With your breath now flowing more deeply, let your arms extend again towards the front side of the mat. Taking an inhalation now to lift the hips up, finding an all-four stance and perhaps adjusting the knees so they're resting back under the hips. Perhaps spreading the hands out into the floor, or maybe you prefer to stand up on fists today, avoiding the wrist pressure altogether. As you take your next inhalation, let your belly drop a little. The tailbone gaze is rising slightly. Elbows might be soft to encourage the opening. And when you breathe out, straightening the arms, beginning to round into the cat. The inhale, softening elbows, lifting and opening the front of the body. And the exhalation to have strong arms and really round deeply into the back. Let that flow for a few more breaths. As you're moving through the spine, if it feels good, just continue for a little longer. If you like, you could also initiate each rolling movement of the spine from your tailbone. So letting the tailbone rise, and then the last thing that lifts is the head. Letting your tailbone draw under as you round gradually through the spine, and the last thing again that moves is the head. So perhaps playing with the idea of rolling the spine up bit by bit for a little while, observing yourself, how this lands with you, what the sensations are that you're feeling, and basically observing how you're spending your time. Now bringing your back into a neutral position, grounding actively through your feet and hands. And on the next inhalation, keeping a bit of stability, starting to extend the right leg back. On the out breath, draw the knee into the chest, your nose towards the knee. For the in breath, you might flex the foot, extending the leg back, the head forward, and out breath as you draw back under. Repeating the movement for 3 more breaths. Let the movement be as slow or fast as you're breathing. And if it feels a little bit fast, slowing down the breath. When you come to your last round, holding the knee forward, maybe helping or landing the foot between the hands. As you align here, the front foot, keep the ankle underneath the knee. And then let's take an in-breath to collapse this lunge. And an out-breath to uncurl, to come and stand on knee and foot. A breath in to raise both arms. And then from here, taking your hands down with your middle fingers touching, the other fingers curled in. And as you bring the tips of your thumbs together, land them back at the sternum. As you have your mudra back in front of you, that beautiful heart shape and even attaching to the heart, notice the swaying that you might have in your lunge and become firmer in the foundation. Lifting the elbows again and standing right tall in your spine. Kneeling lunge. For the exhalation, simply turning your upper body so you begin to face the bent leg in front, but keeping your spine nice and tall, a twist in your spine. Let's breathe in. And as you breathe out, releasing the hands back down onto the mat, stepping your knee back and finding all fours again. Finding that stability as you actively ground through your feet and hands. And then in breath to keep that stability while extending your left leg. Point the foot as you breathe out to draw your knee and nose together and round your spine. Flex the foot as you inhale to extend your leg and reach the crown of the head forward. Out breath as you draw in. Let's continue the movement, 3 more breaths. And when you come to your last round, keeping the knee into the chest, helping or landing the foot forward. Adjust here in a similar way so that ankle and knee joint here at the front are stacked. Then take a breath in and let your lunge collapse. Relax your upper body and breathe out to uncurl the spine. Lifting both arms if available to you. And then as you come to stand again, touching your middle fingers together on the hour breath, curl the other fingers in, tips of the thumbs attaching to the sternum. Take that little check-in with yourself. Are you grounded actively through the knee, the feet? Is it possible to keep shoulders easy but raise the elbows? Finding a steady gazing point in front of you. Whatever you're creating could be at the forefront of your personal mind's practice. With another out breath, starting to turn towards your front leg, but keeping yourself tall. Mudra unchanged, only the spine twisting. A breath in. And as you breathe out, releasing your hands back down onto the floor. Stepping once more back onto your knees. This time either step the knees a little bit back or the hands a bit forward and come to lean towards a kneeling plank, drawing your tailbone back and down. And keeping elbows close as you next breathe out and come to lower down onto the front of your body. Letting the forehead land onto the ground. The tops of the feet are actively pressing into the mat, so the knees are lightly rising. You can choose to release your arms alongside the body or interlace the hands behind your back. Lengthening the arms downwards towards your toes as we take a breath in to lift upper body, maybe legs, maybe arms. They could rest here as well, but squeezing the shoulder blades a little. See if you can hold here, couple more breaths. Breath is a little bit shorter in the back bends maybe. And when you complete it, let your arms relax. Turn an ear to the floor and soften down to the mat. You could choose to bring a little bit of movement through pelvis and spine if that helps you to settle in. We will repeat this very same posture once more, turning the head to face the mat. And if you had your hands interlaced behind, changing the fingers on top, lengthening the arms down towards the toes, whether by your side or behind, and then taking a breath in as you lift the upper body, maybe the legs, maybe the arms, holding in the back bend, keeping the breath flowing, even though it might be more subtle. Last breath to hold. And when you then exhale, relaxing again, maybe the other ears coming to the ground. As you soften towards the floor, you could gently move again. Centering the head once more and bringing hands back underneath your shoulders. On the inhale, rise onto hands and knees. Now breathing out to reach your buttocks to the heels. Maybe extending the arms forward and finding your child's pose. I will reach for my block in this shape. You might like to do the same. On the out breath, uncurling the spine and returning to this seated position upon the heels called Virashasana. I will again use a block. This seated position is there for a breathing practice or pranayama. So if you need to sit differently, you can. Once you come to rise, give the shoulders a little wiggle or a shrug. Center again on your sitting bones so you feel supported. Hands can rest down into the lap for now. If you choose for the practice of Brahmari or humming bee breath to close off your ears, you can do so with your thumbs and gently pressing the thumbs towards the ear to close off the ears. Before you do so on both sides, you might use both hands here to close the ear with the thumb, the fingers closing the eyes, and the other fingers closing your lips if you wish. This is plain optional. You would do that on both sides, or you might prefer keeping your hands resting in your lap, perhaps Gyan Mudra touching index and thumbs together. We'll practice the humming breath out for a few rounds. I will count and we'll let you know when we reach our last round. Let's start together and then let it flow, breathing in. Last round. Allowing the sound just to resonate. Feel into the vibrations and the overall sensations after this practice of Brahmari. On the breath in, opening your arms again, lifting through your heart space, stretching into your fingers. On the exhale, bringing your hands out in front. If you're seated like myself, just continue on. Otherwise, you might bring your feet onto the mat, tucking toes under, and then lifting knees and hips up. I'll have the block right in front of me for our next movement. You might like to support yourself here as well. As you take a breath in, lengthening your spine forward while you're supported, either hands on blocks or fingertips or hands pressing against the shins to help you. Soften both of your knees and just lifting one heel and then the other, walking out this forward fold on the spot. Once you've walked out a little ground through your heels, bend your knees and slowly fold forward all the way unless your blood pressure or pressure in the head and eyes doesn't allow you to. Leaning the weight slightly forward within those grounded feet. You can still use a block underneath your hands if that's more comfortable. Allowing yourself to just lean towards the toes, leaving your heels on the floor and your gaze down between the knees. lifting your shoulders ever so slightly, creating some space around your neck. And maybe that freed you up just to gently turn the head as if you were saying no. Then give the head a nod for a yes. And then some maybes as you wobble the head. On your next out breath, beginning to uncurl the spine. Rising to a standing pose, give the shoulders a lift on the inhale and shrug them down as you're breathing out, maybe even turning the palms of your hands forward as you come into mountain pose. Now we're standing nice and tall on our mats, aligning the feet to a good, comfortable hip distance apart. Perhaps we keep them like this. On the breath in, lifting the right knee together with your arms rising up. And the hands land at the heart as you step your foot back. Take it out to hip distance as well before you land the whole foot on the floor. Hands sitting at heart center, a light bend into the front knee so that aligns over the ankle joint. A warrior one stands. If you step back to hip distance, your hips will face forward here, which was the aim. Drawing the feet lightly toward each other and maybe completing the warrior by raising your arms. Feel free to keep hands down if you require. If you do lift your arms, your gaze could travel up or you could look straight forward. Notice how your shoulders are positioned if you raise your arms. Do they feel easy? Do you feel like you're pulling them up or down? Maybe finding an easy place for the shoulders. Virabhadrasana 1. For your next inhale, straighten the front leg, extend arms again. As you breathe out, draw the hands down the midline and rest them onto your thigh. Start to lean the hip, lean forward from your hips. The hands are sliding down like a half lift position, pressing down into the ball of the front foot as you lower your gaze, feeling the pelvis being actively aligned, then letting your hands potentially slide down further. If you like, this is a good time again to use a block. And I like that block rather on the inside than in front of the foot so that it actively supports my stance. As you're folding down towards the knee, keep a little pressure in the ball of that front foot so that the left side here of the pelvis is hopefully more or less aligning. Deep, slow breaths in and out. One more breath here. And then an inhalation when you complete it to bend your front knee. Lifting the hands back up to the heart and lengthening the spine forward. Perhaps staying here or raising the back foot off the mat. If you do, flex the foot, leave your toes facing down, your gaze facing down. Warrior 3. If you prefer, you could extend your arms forward and just holding them like in a warrior 1, palms facing, shoulders reasonably easy. Definitely feeling more strength here if you choose to extend your arms. Then land the feet next to each other, lower your arms and erect your spine, standing upright and tall. Close the eyes or steady your gaze and try and be still, observant of the changes you are creating in your body. If your eyes are closed, blink them open again. On the inhale, lifting the arms, the left knee. Draw the hands down to the heart as you extend the leg back. Point your toes at the mat, out about hip distance, so out to your side. And then very slowly landing the whole foot grounded. A subtle bend comes into the front knee so that aligns over your ankle. And once you've got that stance, check in with the hips. Are they still forward or do you need to widen your stance? Then draw the feet in toward each other. Your option, leaving hands at heart or extending the arms, perhaps even lifting your gaze, up to you. If you do, leave shoulders easy. I know it sounds funny, but oftentimes we raise the shoulders too much or we're trying to pull them down. Finding that spot that lies right between where the muscles are supporting, the palms facing each other, and you might have your gazing point. With the next inhalation, straighten the front leg, reaching up. On your outburst, draw the hands down the midline, rest them on top of your thigh, and beginning to fold forward from the hips, but pausing here at a halfway point where the spine is rather long still. Then beginning to descend completely if that suits your body. You could choose again hands on leg, hands on block, or folding with the hands resting on the floor. Keep a bit of pressure down into the ball of the front foot. Allowing yourself to bend and exhale more deeply. One more breath. Then a breath in to bend the front knee. Lift your spine halfway. I'm still supporting here. Maybe take the hands to the heart once you've lengthened your spine. And there comes the option, lifting the back foot off the floor. If you do, flex it. Keep your hips, your toes facing down. If you find you're perfect here, stay. Or you might choose to extend both arms towards the front. Turn the palms to face so your thumbs are shining up to the ceiling. And leave your shoulders reasonably easy while you might feel a little bit of strength in them. Landing your foot, releasing your arms, lifting through the whole posture. And again, without as little to do as you can, just coming to stand. You might have your eyes closed again as you stand tall. Perhaps there's a little bit more balance now between the two sides. What is it that you found? Some habits of your mind in relation to the practice, or perhaps unrelated, trying to escape the practice. Let's explore how that feels in wider standing poses. So maybe facing the long side of the mat as you step your feet out a bit further. Turning the right toes out, the left heel a little. Taking a bend into the right knee. So we're aligning again the knee over the ankle joint. Here, however, the front foot is much more active, so the arch is very lifted. Think of the arch of your back foot too. An option to lift the arms out to shoulder height. Often we have the palms facing down, our textbook. Sometimes we have different arm positions altogether. And sometimes we just turn the palms up because it feels better. So finding your warrior two or Virabhadrasana two, while your stance is quite solid, the feet drawing lightly inward to firm the foundation. Your upper body is reasonably easy. Maintaining this strength in your stance, but straightening your front leg. Taking a breath just to reach your front arm a bit higher. And as you breathe out, tilting the posture, turning this into a triangle, and your gaze might wander up as well. In this shape, lean with the back of your hand to your inside of the leg and lift a little bit more through the lower side of the waist. Perhaps your gaze is up with a chin tuck, perhaps it is down, keeping the arches of both feet very active. Breathing in. As you breathe out, swing the arm down and lift yourself to a stance, turning your feet in the opposite direction, meaning your left toes are pointing out to the short side of the mat, the right heel to the other. Taking a subtle bend or a deeper one, depending on your stance, into the left knee this time. Have a look down at the positioning of the feet. Keeping the arches up and away from the floor will naturally align the legs. Once you've got that, notice the feeling that that brings and draw the feet lightly inward. Then time to maybe lift the arms out. You could have your arms out at about shoulder height. You could choose to place them differently. Finding your position for your arms. Keeping a steady gazing point in that exploration and making sure that you feel supported from the ground upward. Supported also in the exploration. With your next inhalation, straightening the front leg, reaching your front arm up. Feel that length in the side of the body, and then begin to tilt, maybe one arm up, one arm down, or modifications as you come into a triangular pose. Choosing your gazing point here too, up maybe to your extended arm, or down towards the big toe. Are you still standing on your feet in a very similar way, the way it feels? Can you breathe in, lengthen while you use the inner thigh in your hand, the lower side of your waist, reaching it forward? Let's take a breath in, swing the arm down and release into wide-legged stance, or just heeling and toeing your feet a little bit closer, arriving back in a mountain pose, maybe facing the side of the mat, maybe the front, whatever you feel comfortable gazing at. As you allow yourself to find a steady gazing point. Our balance today will be reasonably simple. Let's bring the hands to touch. Shift weight to the left foot and point your right toes out to the side. This could be it, or you might lift the right leg, tilt the body, pointing your toes, and maybe even opening both of your arms. If you do, stretch right out into the fingers as you open your fingers, keeping your gaze steady, star pose. Now, the only thing else, you might lift are the corners of your mouth if you haven't done so quite yet, bright and shiny. Then tap your toes back down to the ground. Touch the palms of your hands together and land your foot. We'll shift the weight right over into the right foot, repeating on the other side, pointing your left toes out. Start to lean your torso slightly, perhaps lifting the foot. If you do, point out through the toes. And the next option, to open your arms. And once your arms are open, again, stretch out into all of your fingers. Actively point out through the toe that you might have lifted. A little smile on your lips for the star. And trying to hold, while what you're not holding is your breath. And even if that flows gently. Tapping your toe to the ground, touching the palms of your hands, landing back on the foot and relaxing the arms. Maybe another moment to close your eyes or find steadiness in your gazing point. Feel into the energies. Despite this having been a very static balance, you might feel some of the energy in your body. On your next breath in, lifting your arms, soften your knees and take a breath out just to fold forward. On your in breath, lifting your spine forward, half lift. And as you breathe out, coming down onto the mat. Start with your knees, but then come to a seat. Now we're preparing everything. I know there's still a while to go. I'd love to do lying on the back sequence. You might have the block by the side of the mat for some support, but we are coming to lie down. You could choose to simply extend your legs out to the front and use your hands or not as you're rolling your spine down onto the floor. I've prepared a little blanket here to rest my head upon, which you could do too. Allowing the shoulder blades to tuck a little bit under. And beginning by bending your knees. You might like to adjust the lower back and pelvis as it's resting on the ground. Please make sure that you have a block in reach in case you would like to use it. So lifting the right leg up, bending the knee and placing your ankle to the thigh. Now keeping an active flexion here in your ankle joint as you open the knee out towards the side. First little adjustment, you might use your right hand and guide the knee a bit further away from you. Please look out that you're not escaping and getting a twist into the hip. It is really just the opening of the leg and the right hip here. If you find, yeah, this could be just about enough, pop a block underneath your left foot and you could stay here just as is. If you feel you would rather go a little bit deeper, extend your right arm between the legs, take the foot off any support and take a hold behind the leg. As you hug in your figure four, bring the saddle length back into the back of your neck. You might use your right elbow to guide your knee out to the side, and you might, just as a precaution, flex both of your feet. You could then choose to hold this very still, or you might add a light micro movement, leaning a little bit left and right, and maybe forth and back in the pelvis to find the sweet spot where that right glute, the right side of your buttocks, feels a little bit challenged. And you might hold right in that tightness, returning your awareness to the breath as you allow it to flow. tiny little bit of vibration if you still feel there's a lot of tension, like a subtle rocking, bouncy movement. Then releasing your left foot back down. If you had it on a block, gently push the block out to the side. Opening your arms out to either side, leaving your ankle on the thigh, let both knees roll over towards the right. You might have that little extra internal rotational sensation, and you could choose to look over to one side. Guiding your legs back into the center, letting your right leg cross over the left completely. Maybe your left foot wiggles across the mat, and then let both knees roll over to the left. Maybe adding a little bit of the rotation here, and perhaps turning your head the other way. As you next breath out, lifting both knees back into the center. Take the right knee and give the right knee a squeeze in towards your chest. You might choose to extend the left leg out, up to you. Perhaps extending the right leg up as you take a hold behind it, flexing your foot and drawing the leg in toward you. An option only to deepen if you prefer, stay here, lifting your nose up to the knee and reaching a little bit deeper up the leg. Perhaps taking the leg as you're holding onto it now back with you as you lie back down. Lastly, bend the right knee, maybe taking a hold of the outer edge of your foot or taking a hold of the back of the thigh as you hug your knee down to the outside of the shoulder, leaving your ankle joint stacked just on top of the knee for half happy baby pose. As we let go of foot or thigh, bending the right knee, stepping the foot onto the mat, and let the left foot join on the mat. Lifting now the left leg up and placing the ankle to the thigh. As you let the left knee now fall out to the side, maintain again the flexion in your ankle joint. And you might bring the left hand onto the left knee to encourage it away from you. The same, if you like to stay in this position, you can, or you could pop a block underneath the right foot to bring the legs a bit closer. Your choice to stay exactly here, or reach your left arm through between the legs, lift the right foot and take a hold behind the leg, hugging both legs in, still a reminder of maintaining your foot in a flexion, as well as hugging in tightly, but maybe guiding the left knee out using your left elbow. You feel free to be steady here, or feel free to add a light micro movement, one where you're leaning into different parts of your left side buttocks and finding the tight spot. If you find it and you enjoy that little bit of discomfort, hold exactly on that spot. And maybe if it feels extremely tight, a little vibration, a tiniest bit of rocking the area. Let's release all of it as you release your right foot back to the ground. Leaving your left ankle on the thigh and opening your arms out to the sides. And as you exhale, let both legs roll to the left, using the foot there for extension of the inward rotation, and perhaps turning your gaze. We will, on the next out breath, center the legs again and the head. And we'll let the left leg slide completely over the right. But you might wiggle your right foot a little bit over. Let the knees roll over to the right-hand side now, as round up as they are, and perhaps turning your gazing point. Twisted roots. As you engage your core again, lifting both legs up, bringing the left knee into the chest and giving that a good squeeze. Choice, right leg could be out long, and you might choose to extend the left leg, taking a hold behind it, maybe actively flexing the foot as you aim to extend into the back of the leg. Option to stay exactly as you are, or to breathe out to lift your head and shoulders, reaching a bit higher up on the leg, and perhaps even taking the leg with you in that new hold position, perhaps. Starting to bend the left knee, as you might change your hold to the outside of the foot, or holding onto the back of the leg. While you maintain your ankle over your knee, draw the knee down to the floor just outside of your shoulder. Half happy baby pose. And what really is a half happy baby? Take the other leg back in. Take your hold on the right foot or leg and draw both knees down to the outside of your shoulders. We often used to tell you to keep your tailbone on the floor. This is really depending on how your back is conditioned and has lost a little bit its relevance. But if you feel like you would rock a bit from side to side, you could draw a bit on one foot and then the other, and allowing that gentle rocking movement from side to side. When you arrive back in the center, take one more out breath to deepen this shape. Then bring your feet back together, your knees, and step your feet down onto the ground. We will now prepare ourselves for relaxation or shavasana. I suggest to gather your things, but then extend your body out while rolling onto one side and just reaching your arms over the head, squeezing your bottom as if you wanted to push the hips out to that side, pointing your toes. And when you breathe out, just flopping onto the back like jelly on a plate. Let's do the same on the other side as you roll over to the other side of your body. Extend the body fully if you can. Squeeze your bottom a little, push the hips out in that direction. And then flop onto your back like jelly on a plate. Releasing your arms back down by the sides and taking any last little wiggles and movements just to find yourself comfortable on the floor. Maybe warm too. As you settle in, your choice is to have your legs extended out long and just let them roll apart, your classical Shavasana pose. Or perhaps you prefer your knees bent, then step the feet out to mat distance and let your knees fall inward. You might have any last wiggles and movements now that feel to bring more comfort. And then let yourself just land in the shape. Perhaps in your mind's eye, focusing on that beautiful heart shape that we were holding at the beginning of the practice, Kalishara Mudra, the mudra of the Lord of Time. As you might, through the visualization of this heart formed with your hands, come to visualize your own heart center. And connecting from the heart center outwards into the chest itself. That where your breath is moving, your torso, maybe your ribs, maybe your abdomen and waist. You feel into the opposite side of the body, that part of the back that is touching the floor. Extend your awareness now to your shoulders. All the way out and down into your arms, hands and fingers. Extend awareness from your heart up to the neck, into your head and face. And again from your center, extending down through the pelvis, buttocks, into your legs, feet and toes. Finding your body more restful. And reconnecting to the slow movement of each breath. And as you watch your breath flowing in and out, begin to extend your awareness to your thoughts. Focus on the intentions you set before this practice, maybe that arose at the beginning. And while keeping this personal affirmation in your mind, make those changes in your thoughts. The idea of this practice is to bring clarity to mind and thoughts. So you might repeat this practice a few times of creating a change that you would like to see and aiming to have your mind focus on it as you create it for yourself. But each time that you find your mind wandering or doubting the process, start again. Perhaps reminding yourself that this is just a practice. So is all that we do on the mat. And so is the majority of our lives. So you might take this as a management of thoughts technique into your life. Supporting this idea is the card that I drew out of a crystal card deck today. It's the fluorite. It enhances concentration, can give psychic protection, as well as emotional stability. As you allow your breath to deepen now, beginning some movement back in the body, maybe even stretching yourself out. You could then roll over onto your side. And perhaps from there, assisting yourself into a seated position. We might, for a last time, remind ourselves of Kalashara Mudra by touching our middle fingers together, rolling the other fingers in, touching the thumbs together, and resting the thumbs gently towards the sternum by lightly raising the elbows. For the last time, we're tuning in with the energy of this mudra, helping us to create change as we learn to see it. We'll finish our practice with one round of Om, followed by 3 Shantis for peace. Let's begin with the in-breath. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let this mudra dissolve into Anjali Mudra where your palms are touching, and then we'll lightly bow to extend to each other. Namaste.